is good right now. And why? Because hosts are making so much money around the world because COVID has disrupted travel patterns. So people are traveling and slow season is canceled for now. And like the world's most lovable evil lion Scar always says, be prepared. And that's what I'm gonna do in this video, is prepare you for your next slow season. Winter is coming. And no, that does not mean that literally your next slow season is going to be winter. That's a Game of Thrones thing. So whether or not your next slow season is literally winter, what I'm gonna do in this video is I'm going to teach you how to predict your next slow season with data, techniques to de-risk your portfolio into slow season so you come in strong, and then tactics to get through slow season so you get bookings while your competitors don't, and you're the one that makes money during slow season. Sean Rakidzich, Airbnb host for 7 years. I got all the tools you need. Let's jump in. Welcome back, Airbnb family. So this video requires my Slytherin cup because you can't go into slow season with an effective strategy without a little bit of cunning. In this video, I'm gonna take you from Hufflepuff to Gryffindor in just a matter of maybe 20 to 30 minutes while all your competitors are gonna be salty Ravenclaw. Hey, Ravenclaw, speaking of, I found your lost item. It's called the subscribe button. It's right there. Click that button so you can keep up with all of the things that are happening on this channel, and hit the bell so you're always notified of new videos. First thing we need to discuss though is what is slow season and why does slow season happen? So if you look at AirDNA, the free version of any city, there's going to be a little chart that pops up in the upper right that shows you the lowest that a city ever makes in money on average and the highest that the city ever makes on average. That high point is what we call high season or peak season, and that low number is what we call slow season. And it typically follows a pattern. Typically, there are external forces in this video that we're gonna talk about as to what causes slow season artificially, but usually slow season, the dip, is caused by just the vacuum that is created when there's less travelers while there's still the same amount of hosts. Because if supply stays the same, but the number of travelers drop, then all the suppliers have to fight dirty and find ways to get full. And that's what we're gonna talk about in this video. And 1 second, outfit change. I realize that my hairy Serbian shoulders can be distracting, speaking of you Hufflepuff out there. Moving forward, let's talk about your slow season and how you can prepare for it, and then how you can get through it. The stories I can give you best are illustrated by the markets that I'm in. I have a little over 110 properties. Haley just keeps adding them, so I don't have a real-time count right now. You go, Haley. But we're in Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, and Philadelphia, plus some suburban cities. So we're like in 7 or 8-ish cities right now. And there's a very clear difference in travel patterns in a place like Philadelphia as opposed to travel patterns here in my home of Dallas. See, Dallas has what I think to be a more even, like year-round bit of business, but we have, you know, slow periods, say August into September, and a lot of times like January into February tend to be slower in my experience. But then Philadelphia, it booms all summer, right? August, September should just be fine. Like Memorial Day weekend coming up is insanely booked, like insanely booked. Then we tend to experience a lull like October, November. We have a lot of Christmas events during December, and then January, February can be kind of rough. See, what happened with COVID though, like 1 year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, in March, everybody's bookings got canceled, and then we all were racing to get refilled. And in Dallas, we had a very short period of time where we actually were affected by this artificial slow season, right? The COVID scare plus Airbnb canceling everybody's bookings created this point where there's so much more demand, where there's so much more supply and then not enough demand, because these people aren't just rebooking their trips. People are like, well, maybe I won't travel. So people were racing to get booked. In Dallas, that only lasted merely weeks, not even months, but just weeks. Where in Philadelphia, we had to ride all the way through winter. From March all the way to the next March, we had just a suppressed year on Airbnb, where we had to lower our prices, get more monthly bookings. There's a bunch of people local booking to party because all the bars got closed down, stuff like that. And this is one of those external artificial slow season factors. We just experienced one of the biggest ones you can ever experience, which is a pandemic caused a drop in sentiment where travelers were not traveling. And then furthermore, there were local and statewide, federal, worldwide regulations that prevented travel, which means that even if people wanted to travel, they could not. So those are two separate causes: regulatory changes and drops in like travel sentiment, or drops in travel spending due to sentiment. And we also just showed you that results vary. When these types of things happen, it might affect one area for a day or 5, or might affect another area for a year. Now, Like I just said, Memorial Day is booming, or is it Memorial or Labor Day? Coming up in a week, September 4th weekend. In Philadelphia, it's insanely busy. Here in Dallas, we don't get as much of an uptick because people aren't coming to Dallas, but I'll tell you, the lake in Austin, like Travis and stuff like that, that's probably booked up too. See, different holidays and different things cause people like that. And so that's Philadelphia and Texas, two completely geographically separate areas, but are both responding to an event, which is a local tourism event. Another example of what can cause an artificial uptick in travel where us hosts get some more money is an example like the Super Bowl in 2017, which is really where I started to dig in. Knowing the Super Bowl was coming to Houston, I went from 3 properties to 10 to prepare because I knew the money was going to be there. And when Houston did all of its preparatory work to try to make Houston look nice, people came in for the Super Bowl, hundreds of thousands of people, and they left Houston saying nice things about Houston. Now that word of mouth marketing caused an artificial uptick of travel to Houston for like the next year and a half or 2 years. People traveled more to Houston because they were hearing good things because the Super Bowl caused word of mouth marketing. See, now an increase in sentiment to a local area, things trending like Tulum, there's going to be an increase in demand, and then suppliers respond by increasing their inventory or adding Airbnb to the market space. This is what happens, but as all things go up, they inevitably must come down. So as you add more and more suppliers and the increase in buyers stops and maybe even starts to correct and go back down to normal, now you have too many suppliers and not enough customers, and now those suppliers need to start fighting for the scraps that are the reservations. But I have good news for you. The people who do best on Airbnb tend to get booked anyway, because the way that people shop around on Airbnb is they're looking for the properties that they like. They want ones that are highly reviewed. They want ones that Airbnb is obviously pushing with their ranking system. So the upper percentile of any market, those Airbnb hosts always eat. So one tip that is a universal tip worldwide is always be the best host, and you will always get bookings, because the bottom of the market is the part that falls out when it's slow season. That sounds more like mindset advice, and you guys know that I'm not some cheap guru that just gives you mind colloquialisms or stuff like that. So let me actually give you some tactical advice and put your competitors to shame. One of my timeless bits of advice that is also pretty darn universal that you can use is I always recommend coming into any slow season, you want to start incentivizing monthly bookings. And my logic for this is, let's say that your slow season to come is 2 or 3 months long. Well, if you know you're about to have a 3-month down cycle, what you can do is you can try to pick up 2-month or 3-month long stays at a guaranteed profit, right? If you're not making as much profit as normal, let's say that your apartment will normally do right now in this frenzied buyer season. I mean, I've got students that have rents that are $1,400 a month, and they're making $5,400 a month in revenue. So they're making $3,000, $4,000 a month on their property or something like that, which is pretty freaking tight for a studio apartment. That's insanely good. But as that drops out, we're not gonna see the same type of revenue anymore. We're not gonna see the same type of profit. So you really wanna think about what your baseline normal profit is, and don't get too used to making 2 or 3 times as much profit than normal. This is an artificially inflated market. This money won't last forever. That's one thing I want you to know. So when you look at your baseline profit, say your baseline profit is normally $1,200 a month. All right, don't count on this $3,000 a month thing. Let me repeat that. Don't count on it. Your baseline, let's say it's $1,200 a month year round, usually pre-COVID. Then what you can do is you can sell off your monthly property at a discount that gives you a $700 net profit instead. By having a $700 guaranteed profit on a multi-month stay, what you're doing is, hypothetically, let's say you have 10 properties and you sell half of them for a $700 a month profit instead of the 12. Well, now going into slow season, you no longer have 10 properties, do you? You only have 5 that are exposed to the risk of slow season. Not only that, but you have a $3,500 per month bonus check. Okay, so if you go into slow season and start to use the techniques that I teach you, tactics that I teach you, and for some reason it's so bad that even with the best person in the world to teach you about slow season, that my techniques don't make you enough money and you lose a little bit of money on your property, let's say you lose $300 per property on your other 5. Well, now you still net $2,000 a month in income because you guaranteed profit on 5 doors at $3,500 and then you lost $300 on 5. Where if you didn't do your slow season strategy coming in, you would have had all 10 units exposed to risk and you would have lost $3,000 instead of making 2. So this is the main concept of de-risking, taking some of your short-term rental portfolio and doing something you typically wouldn't do, which is guaranteeing slow season profits by bargaining off at a multi-month. Now, to pull this off, you need to be able to predict your next slow season. So let me give you some fortune cookie advice, and then actually let me give you some data-based advice. I believe that we are currently canceling all slow seasons through till the next spring or summer. That's what I think. I'm not saying that we won't see a dip in the winter, right? Like my Philadelphia properties and stuff, Chicago properties, people who normally have a winter slow season. I'm not saying that this next winter is not coming, but I think it's gonna be a warm winter per se. What we're gonna have is we're gonna see revenge travel continue for the next 12 to 16 months is what I think is going to happen. That's my prediction, okay? This is not financial or legal advice, but this is what I think is gonna happen. I'm not going to be bargaining off as much of my properties for monthly stays through the winter in my slow markets if the data confirms this. And here's how you can find out if the data confirms this. First, if you have a lot of properties like me, this is the easiest way to confirm the data. And what I look at is my projected occupancy. I just did this little 3-minute long video not too long ago where I show you how to spy on other people's properties, and you can look and see how booked their properties are. And I said that for a 4-bedroom house, you want to be 50% occupied or better over the next 60 days. Right? So these are the types of things we're going to be factoring in when looking at our own portfolio. What I want to see my portfolio is I want to see that my studios and 1-bedrooms, because I try to be good at this, I want to see that we're at least 20% booked 60 days out. And I expect most of those bookings to be today, tomorrow, next weekend, the weekend following, and some weekdays scattered in between. That's what I'm looking for with my smallest properties. With my bigger properties, I want to see that I'm booked 5 or 6 weekends out, and I want to see weekdays booked for the next month, right? That's how I want to see my 50% occupancy on my larger properties. So what I do is I look at different cities, I look at my 30 properties in Philly, I look at my 60 properties in Dallas, and I look and I see what is our average occupancy every, like say 10 days. And here's how you do this. Go to your multi-calendar, airbnb.com/multi-calendar, and do a screenshot of let me back out. Here's a pro tip, wild pro tip. There's an internal name on every listing. You can name your listing something people see, and there's an internal name that people don't see. Things I put in my internal name is some identifier that people can just type in and get to that one listing really fast. I put DTX for Dallas, Texas, HTX for Houston, Texas, PHL for Philadelphia, so that way I can just type PHL in the search bar up in the top left of the multi-calendar, and it pulls up only Philly markets. And then I also put a 2 or 3-digit number, which is how much my cleaning fee is. And I do this so that way when I'm manually adjusting my pricing for slow season or otherwise, I can see what my cleaning fee is, so I can say cleaning fee plus nightly rate, this is the least amount of money that somebody's gonna be paying for my place. So I always wanna reference the cleaning fees, and that's what I do with the internal name. But back to the tip, back to the whole topic tip, slow season. If I type in DTX and pull up all my Dallas, Texas properties, and then I do a screenshot, which you can do, you can screenshot all of your Dallas properties or all your Houston or anywhere you are, and you do the next 60 days screenshot, right? And store that in a folder and date that folder for the day you did the screenshot. Do this every 10 days. And what I want you to do is I want you to go back and I want you to count all the empty days over your whole calendar for that 60-day period. And then you take all the available days and you measure them, right? Are you 40% booked? Are you 30% booked? Are you 70% booked, right? And when you do this every 10 days, you get an average leading occupancy, right? Your average leading occupancy is the occupancy that you have to come. Your trailing occupancy is what is the final number of occupancy that you have behind you after those 10 days. So what I would like you to do is I'd like you then to add on, every time that you do this, every 10 days you get your leading occupancy, I want you to look at the 7 days behind, right? And I want you to calculate what your trailing occupancy over 7 days is every time you do this future 60-day snapshot. So every 10 days, you've got your average leading occupancy, and then you have your trailing occupancy. Your trailing occupancy should be 90, 92, 94, 96, 100% if you do your pricing strategy right. And by the way, I have a playlist here. It's a free pricing strategy course playlist here on YouTube. Go watch that if you want to get better at your pricing strategy. What this will start to teach you to notice is there's a relationship between your leading occupancy and your trailing occupancy. When your leading occupancy goes down, your trailing occupancy will go down too, unless you drop your rates more aggressively and now your average nightly rate starts to go down. So you've got 3 total numbers that have a relationship: your leading occupancy, your average nightly rate, and your trailing occupancy. If you have a strong leading occupancy, you can have a strong trailing occupancy and a strong average nightly rate. But if you have a weak leading occupancy, like relatively weak to what's normal for you, you'll notice that if you have the same trailing occupancy, that your average nightly rate for that period will go down. How do we use this data? This data becomes significant when you're coming into any period that could be your slow season. You want to look at major events, changes in regulations, anything that can cause a change in consumer sentiment, and what is also your typical slow season anyway, okay? Look at all the factors, and anytime that something happens that you should sound the slow season alarm, I want you to check your leading occupancy and see if your leading occupancy is still healthy. When you're coming into your slow season, you know, what is like your typical seasonal market slow season, like 2.5 months, 3 months before that, I want you to pay very close attention to see if you start to have a taper off in leading occupancy. As you approach slow season, if you see a drop where, like say your average leading occupancy is 30%, if it goes below 20%, you're seeing a 30% like relative decline to your leading occupancy, that is slow season, all right? You're starting to come into it. So what I want you to do is, as you start to enter those types of numbers, you want to change your pricing strategy to discount monthly stays in a way that is just more aggressive than you normally would. And if you have Pro Tools, you can do a 4-week, 5-week, 8, 10, 12-week discount. So you can decide to discount 6 weeks or longer, not just monthly. And you can start to scoop up 6-week or longer stays in your slow season. That's how you use data to start choosing when to use a monthly first strategy instead of a short-term first strategy. Now, that and being the best host you possibly can be are 2 of the best measures of prevention against the slow season blues. And what's great for you is, even if you only do these 2 things, focus on guest quality, great reviews, good Airbnb SEO presence, and then of course, de-risk your portfolio a little bit coming into slow season, your competitors will make way less money than you, and then some people will just quit and give up. That's why slow season is good for the Airbnb cycle, is every year, if too many people join the Airbnb space and there's too many suppliers, then there's not enough money for people to make it worth their time. And then they fall off, and the career hosts stay the course. The hosts that have achieved some scale and have a lower cleaning cost stay the course, stuff like that. And that way, we can always be sure that the market will be good to us career professionals because we know how to survive slow season and all the newbies don't, right? And if you're a newbie, this is your chance to catch up. This YouTube channel is your chance to catch up to the rest of us who are really good at this. The good stuff. Let me give you the Slytherin cunning ways to get bookings in slow season when no one else can. Game theory, my favorite topic when it comes to pricing strategy. This is gonna be the first one. You need to know how to use rule sets in order to achieve the example that I'm going to give you. Game theory is basically, let's break it down to rock, paper, scissors. If everyone's throwing rock, you know you're gonna win if you throw paper, right? In our game, there's actually 3 players in the game. You, your competition, and the customer, right? And so throwing rock is supposed to incentivize the customer to either choose rock, paper, or scissors. So what happens in peak season is there's a lot of people that choose rock. When you throw rock, they're like, I want that one, right? So going into slow season, what we find is that hosts don't adapt their pricing strategy when slow season approaches. They still have 2-day or 3-day minimums. They still have highly priced weekends. Their weekday prices are the same. They don't change their description. They don't change their headline, their title, their thumbnails, anything. They don't change anything, right? A lot of hosts have a static strategy. So now what you can do is, it was great making money throwing rock in peak season because there's so many high paying weekend customers that it was still a good strategy. You and all of your competition are throwing rock, and there's a bunch of people paying for the same product, right? Like and like. Now, the market starts to fall out where all the main tourism travelers start to not show up. But there's always this hidden underlayer of travelers that people don't go for. They could be local people relocating for work, these monthly stays, people that are not staying through for the weekend. They're forced to stay on the weekend because of business, but they're not booking for the weekend. So now you can start throwing paper, is our game theory example here. And here's a way to throw paper when everyone else is still throwing rock. What you do is you make it so that way you discount your weekend prices on a condition. You can have say a 4-day discount or a 5-day discount. And let's say your weekend prices are normally $200. Your weekday prices are normally $100. Well, what you can do now is you can give a 40% off or 50% off discount if somebody books 5 days, but you only apply that 50% discount to your weekends, and you do that with a rule set. So the rule set, you just apply it to Friday, Saturday, and then if somebody books 5 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they get $100 on Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday, and they get 50% off of $200 on Friday, Saturday. So now you have a $500 booking for 5 days. What this does is this helps you book your weekends, which can be some of the hardest days to book during slow season because you're trading away your profit on your weekends. So you're getting your weekdays booked at the cost of your weekends. But what's great about this is when there's not enough customers to book all the weekends anyway, all the hosts that still have that same static strategy where it's 100 on weekdays and 200 on weekends, they're trying to make their $200 on the weekends, but then they go unbooked, right? So they eventually drop their rates for their weekdays down to, or their weekends down to like 140, down to like 100 later, but it's so last minute that they no longer have the time to get booked. So they still go empty. They don't get the 5-day stay. They might get a Thursday, Friday stay for 100 and then 115. But then Saturday goes unbooked, Sunday goes unbooked, Wednesday goes unbooked. So by you doing this trade-off, you can get 5 of your 7 days a week booked up, or 4 of your 7 days a week booked up, where even though you didn't make all the money on the weekends, you're not losing money on the other days because you're still profitable on each day. You're just not wildly profitable on Friday, Saturday. Because any day that you go unbooked, you are losing money because you can't go back and sell that day again. Once that day passes unbooked, you lose whatever your cost basis is to run your business. The thing though is a lot of people have a week discount, like a 7-day discount. So the tight fit here, like the thread the needle strategy, is to encourage 4-day or 5-day stays. So that way you get those. You're capturing this very unique part of the market where people are staying through the weekend, but not for a whole week, right? Where if they got a weekly discount, say they get 20% off the whole week, other competitors of yours will have a 20% off for the week, and they can become price competitive against you because they have that built in, but nobody's doing these 4-day discounts, right? And nobody's especially doing 4-day discounts just on the weekends. So this is an example of game theory. This is not the only way to do it, but this is just one of the many rule sets that I use to control consumer behavior in slow season. I'm not gonna give away all my sauce, but I do have a mini course, very small course. Oh, it's really dense. It's like 2.5 or 3 hours long, but it's small in price. It's like $350 for my pricing strategy course, and I teach you all about how to use rule sets, just so you know. Other techniques that you can use is you can actually remove your cleaning fee and add it to your nightly rate. This is to lower your booking inertia per se, and I will be doing a future video on booking inertia, what the concept is, and all of the booking inertia topics that you should be aware of. But essentially, booking inertia is whenever somebody goes to book with you and there's a reason why they decide to change their mind, right? And fees that they don't like tend to be some of the reasons why they change their mind. And so a booking, like a cleaning fee that they think is an unfair amount will cause them to not book with you on principle, even though they liked your space. That's booking inertia. So you can remove booking inertia by changing how your fee structure works, and you roll your housekeeping costs into your nightly rate and really bank on 4-day stays or something like that. And now you're not losing these 4-day stays because they hate your cleaning fee. You can also advertise that you have a slow season special. A call to action in your title or the first sentence of your description, be like, these months of the year, message us for a 15% discount. Basically, you just write that. And what this is doing is this puts somebody deeper into your funnel, right? Somebody clicks on your listing because they like your thumbnail. They read your description, they see your photos, and then they see that your call to action is contact me for 15% off. It's not book me right now, but contact me. Now, if they're curious about getting 15% off, that means that they're not gonna book someone else. They're gonna message you and wait for you to respond. Now you have a chance to sell them. You are in a direct message conversation with this person who has the hopes of 15% off. And now they're gonna talk to you. They're gonna entertain your listing, and they're gonna stop searching for other ones. You just pattern broke them, stopped them in their tracks, and you got them to make a conversation with you. Getting a customer to have a conversation with you on Airbnb is essentially like getting a booking. You're gonna 20x your bookings. Anytime that somebody messages you, optimistically, that person is planning to book. And if you just don't screw this conversation up, you get a reservation. That's something that hosts don't do. They just don't do it. They don't sell. Hosts are not salespeople. They're people with a house. Sometimes they're good at design. They're not salespeople. Become the salesperson. And my most favorite slow season strategy is to play the rental market. A lot of slow seasons line up with the rental slow season and market. So a real estate developer, a landlord with multiple properties, trying to get leases before the winter in Philadelphia, they see their slow season. People don't move in the winter. People don't want to move in. So if you have a building that is highly unoccupied coming into the winter, they want a solution. So I can go to a building entering into slow season and say, hey, I'll take some leases, but I want 2 months free, or I want 3 months free. And you'll see, I've got a couple videos where I outline these conversations where landlords are happily giving me 2 or 3 months for free, and they're giving me 15% off of rent over the life of the lease. Stuff like that, it happens. So what's cool is you add to your portfolio going into slow season. Let's say you have 10 properties. You add 5 more. With 2 months, you furnish the place, boom. You're making more revenue because you have 15 listings. Some of them are booked for a month, or 2 month or 3 month because you followed the strategy. And now the rest of your portfolio, you're scrapping for nightly or weekly bookings, but you're not paying rent on 5 of the 10 that you're scrapping for bookings on. You locked away 5 with monthlies. You got 5 that you already had that you're going into slow season with, and you have 5 new ones with 2 months of rent for free. Now what's cool is all the revenue that you generate on those 10 listings only has to funnel cash into 5 for rents and like those other rent related expenses. So now you are building your cash basis through slow season, so that way if you were actually losing money on 5 of your doors, you're still generating, or if you're losing money on 10, let's say hypothetically you're paying rent on all 10, $1,500 per month per property, instead of having $15,000 in rents and you only say collected $12,000 in revenues, since you're only paying rent on 5 of them, you're only paying $7,500 in rent, but you're still collecting the $12,000 in revenue. So now you're increasing your cash position while you're going through slow season, which is a really cool thing. And then after the 2 months of rent end that you get for free, then you start paying rent on all of them. But by timing free months of rent, you're actually reducing your risk of actually having a cash poor position in the middle of slow season. Because the last thing you want is to make a mistake and not have enough cash to survive. That's the biggest part of running a business, guys, is do not run out of cash. That is it. So if you time your free months and increase your cash position, and let's say you still screw up and you don't make enough money to really pay your bills, you still have a strong cash position at the end of slow season instead of being out of cash. And that's the last thing you ever want as a business owner. I hope that this was helpful. Remember, like the video. Stick around for more videos, guys. And let me know if you'd like me to teach you something else. Put it in the comments. We can talk about it. As always, I'll see you on the other side.